Many people think that Art Tatum was the greatest jazz pianist, and in terms of technique, there's no question about that. In terms of harmonic invention, he was way ahead of anybody in his time. Of course, harmonic invention has gone in several different directions since those days. Tatum played extremely fast when he chose to. He played with tremendous velocity, and as a result, people simply couldn't comprehend what he was doing. What might be useful for us is to put Art Tatum into slow motion, slow him down and figure out exactly what he was up to. Because what he really did was to use a certain vocabulary. He recycled patterns from time to time and tended to redo certain harmonic progressions in the same way from song to song. Let me show you some of these devices out of the Art Tatum vocabulary. For example, here's what I would call a G-turn device that Tatum used, which works on the tones in a G7 chord. Or let's make it a G13 chord like this. Very slowly. Notice it's the same fingering all the way up. 4, 3, 2, 1. Then that pivots up to the next one. 4, 3, 2, 1. It's not difficult to do, and it's possible to do it very fast. And there's another variation of that which you can do with only 3 notes instead of 4. You can go like this. 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1. And that comes out like... Now here's how both Tatum and Teddy Wilson used a descending pentatonic scale. Art Tatum frequently used a descending pentatonic scale. Teddy Wilson used the same device, and it sounds like this. It can be used over a plain chord or a passing chord like that. But it is very useful, and it gives an impression of tremendous speed. If we slow it down, the fingering is a little bit odd, because once you get past the introductory 5, you are into a series of 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Oddly enough, this kind of run feels better if you do it more rapidly. In G, in F, and of course you can convert it into something slightly different as you're moving along. Now this sort of pentatonics, of course, is not at all like McCoy Tyner or Chick Corea might have done. It was not the John Coltrane school of pentatonics, which was more of this sort of thing. And yet it is kind of the same materials. Very useful device. Tatum sometimes embellished the beginning of this pentatonic descending passage with a little flourish at the top like this. Like so. Tatum would play this descending pentatonic passage in different keys, of course, but also in different places in the time. He'd start on the first beat, the second beat, the third beat. Also, sometimes he would put a little flourish at the beginning of it, a chromatic 2 or 3 notes as a flourish just to begin it, like. So I'll play it and I'll displace it, different beats of the bar, and I'll put this flourish on it, and I'll do this one in B flat. Now I'd like to show you some neighbor tone devices that work in D flat. This is a device that uses the tonality of D flat. So let's put down the D flat here and hold on to that. And this is what it sounds like. Once again. You'll notice that your thumb is always on the white keys, going up a diatonic scale. And in your right hand, you are almost playing a scale in thirds, like so. You could displace it a little bit, and it sounds like. But the nice thing about this is that it's easy to do very fast, like this. And you can also do it descending. Right? I'm playing a D flat scale, and then I'm going to whatever is convenient, a third below it. The melody is always on my fourth finger in this descending mode. Now, this suggests that you can go farther with it and put the thirds together so that it comes out like this. The thumb is always on the white keys, so you're dealing with, but it's preceded by the thumb on the white key closest to it, like so. Again, the wonderful use of this thing is that it can be done very fast. Tatum especially would dazzle people with this one, the descending one, like. But well, that's what it is. Here are some diatonic devices that work very easily in the key of C. Here's a diatonic device. Naturally, it centers around the C scale. You don't have to play a black note at all in this thing. And what you do sounds like this. Let's slow it down. Starting on the B in the C scale, it's a step and a third. Half step, a third, whole step and a third, whole step and a third, half step and a third. And coming down, it's the same kind of action. You could also do it with an A minor chord. You could do it on an F. And if you wanted to, you could convert it into a leading tone and a third like this. In other words, the 2 and the 4 always play a diatonic scale up. The thumb always leads them into it. Coming down, the thumb jumps to the next lower position. These things are very simple when you take them apart, but at the Tatum-esque velocity, they're very useful and very impressive. Here's another little device. diatonic, but really based on pentatonic. You go like this. I'm using a chromatic device, and I'm starting on the D, and then I'm going down here, then I'm jumping up to here, around this black note, then around this black note, then around this one, then around this one here, around the D flat, around the E flat, around the G flat, around the A flat, around the B flat. So, and if I do it around every black note, it comes out. However, I can make it so that it eliminates the 4 of the scale, so it can be used more as a plain C chord, and it will come out like, skip this one and go up here. Coming down would be something like this. And here's a little slight variation on that Teddy Wilson and Mel Powell did. They went but basically it is diatonic and a piece of cake. Then there are sextuplet devices, which can be used in all keys. The things we've gone into so far in all of these runs have been in either triplets or in 8th notes or in 16th notes, but there's a whole bunch of them that work very well in sextuplets, 6 to a beat. And one of them, for example, sounds like this. Let's slow it down. The 5th one, the 5 on the first note is really not essential. It just gets you started. Here's where it starts. Let me tell you the fingering. 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 1. So, or. Now that was for the F chord, but here's one you can use for a B flat chord. It's not quite the same because for convenience sake, you're really doubling back and forth between an F9 chord and an F minor 7 chord. Watch. These runs, you see, are based more on what's convenient for the hand than they are on some exact musical idea. It's what the hand can do and what's easy for velocity. Here is one, here's another one, and this one I will put into E flat. And that is very much like what I did before in 16ths, but if you do it in sextuplets, it has a wonderful rhythmic vitality. You can start it up here. You can start it here. And in slow motion, that would come out like this. And it's the same fingering that I illustrated before. Here's where it starts. Say it starts on the B flat, 3, 2 on the G, 1 on the F, 3 on the E flat, 1 on the C, and so forth. Or you might use your 4 on the B flat instead of the 3. Or back and forth. Now here is one in A flat, which is almost a complete A flat diatonic scale, but you leave out one tone and it becomes a sextuplet. So, very good for rhythmic purpose. A little faster would be the ideal way to do it. Now, here's something else. If you take your ordinary minor scale, which includes the lowered 9, it would come out for a D7 chord, it would come out like this. It doesn't settle on it doesn't resolve for several octaves, but that makes it even more dramatic. In slow motion, that would be like so. And this is of course one of the minors that you find if you practice all your minor scales. That sort of thing. What Tatum does sometimes, he takes his sextuplets and he converts them into quintuplets, that is, groups of 6 notes to groups of 5 notes. Instead of doing that, he'll put these 2 notes together. So he's got a group of 5 notes because he's jammed the D and the E flat together. Again, if you do it fast, which was to begin with, and it's become. There are a great many different uses for broken arpeggio devices like this one. If you take simple arpeggios, you can often convert them into fairly dazzling runs, as Tatum did. I mean, for example, if you make an arpeggio out of the simplest thing, triad system like that, that's pretty good if you do it. If you do it and open it up so that it's a broken sort of arpeggio like this, I think it's even better. And that comes out. And you can do this in almost every key, even the keys where the thumb strikes the first note. In B flat, say, here's the thumb down here on the B flat, second on the D, then jump up to the top of the octave with the 5th finger, then thumb again. You could do it in G flat. These things do not have to have a static chord underneath them. It can frequently be the sort of device where you are playing this in the right hand, but the left hand is moving around in a diatonic or even a chromatic way. You can even do this. Suppose you say a B flat chord, a B flat 7 in the left hand, then this same thing becomes a harmonic extension of that, like. So you're really dealing with this advanced chord using the same old C arpeggio. Suppose you struck a G flat chord in the left hand, use the C arpeggio again. That's pretty good there, right? Almost anything will work in that way. Suppose you have an E flat chord in the left hand, an A in the right hand, giving you a tritone relationship. So it's clear that some patterns work best in one key and some work best in another key. What Tatum did that was brilliant was that he would play tunes in difficult keys like B, but he would throw in easy runs from, say, C, making a harmonically fresh and intriguing and exciting result. Let me show you. If he were playing in the key of B and he often did, you would wonder how he would use the very natural C7 or C9 run. And this is how it would be. If you're resolving in the key of B, you do it basically from an F sharp 7 to the B. Now, if you take the F sharp 7 and put a C chord on top of it, then what happens is this. It's this one. It's the C7, literally a ninth run. But put the C7 over the F sharp and you have up to speed is, or another version of it. And what you have there is technically an F sharp 7 chord with a flatted 5 and a flatted 9. Okay, so that's one device. Now, suppose he were playing in the key of E, or suppose he had just landed on an E chord in some other context. Same principle. Left hand will play the E. Suppose the right hand plays a G chord. Very nice chord. Right out of George Gershwin. Suppose you run up on the G chord while holding the E chord in the left hand. Or this one. And then what you have is an E7 with a raised 9. And if you felt really fancy about it, you could do this chord, the E in the left hand and a B flat in the right hand. And then you would have an E7 with a flat 5 and a flat 9. And take your B flat devices and all these things are possible on a simple E chord. And finally, I'd like to show you this. In the key of F sharp, a cadence would resolve to G sharp 7, G sharp minor 7, C sharp 7 to F sharp. Well, in this case, why not stick in an F7 lower neighbor before you find the resolve, so that you'd have, that's G sharp minor 7, C sharp 7, F to F sharp. And if you're doing the F, you can do a run on an F chord, and the result is which is, again, this in slow motion. Resolving. Or other varieties of F7 chord. Or the point is that it's going somewhere unexpected. It's going to go to the F sharp. So all of these things Tatum learned to do, and the principle is that he would take runs in one context and put them in very odd keys to get a whole different use from them. This is not to say that Tatum was anything at all like painting by the numbers. On the contrary, he was full of surprises. First of all, he was fluent in all the keys, and he would begin one pattern and convert it into another, in midair, so to speak. He might start with one of the patterns I've been discussing, and then suddenly go into a relative minor scale, a chromatic scale, and end up somewhere else. You never knew what he was going to do, and this is why he was so brilliant. Well, here's how it would sound if you put them all together. I'll just try to lay in all the Tatumisms I can get away with, and I think we'll do it on the old song Body and Soul. Body and Soul is particularly well suited to this sort of demonstration because it's basically in D flat, and then it goes to D natural and stops off in C, and a lot of these runs are made to order for those kind of chords. So here is Body and Soul.